Hey there, welcome. It's the Gun Cranks again, the show that has been proven 250% less hypocritical than Alec Baldwin. I'm your host, Brent Wheat, editor of Guns Magazine, along with Tom McHale, the editor of American Handgunner Magazine, and today we have Erick Gelhaus, the editor of AmericanCop.com. Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I was trying to figure out how I could crack a hypocritical wisecrack, but I'll work on it.
You failed.
Stay tuned.
Big fail. Well, you may notice I'm in a different location. I'm in my secret underground bunker here in the bedrock below the Midwest. I thought I'd move here for a couple of episodes. No, actually, we're doing some renovation, and I finally got rid of my steam-powered computer. So we're going to be here in the new studio for a couple of episodes. And today, guys, we're going to talk about something that should be relatively entertaining. And I came up with the topic, even though I'm a little bit hypocritical. And our topic is the guns I hate, the guns I unreasonably hate. And frankly, I really don't hate any guns, except if you start talking about the Nylon 66. I've never liked that thing. And part of it may be when it first came out when I was a kid, I really wanted one at the time. So maybe it's that unrequited love. But nowadays, I have a hunting partner who shows up with a Nylon 66 that looks like it was probably buried in a feedlot for 10 years. It's awful, and I think he takes pride in the fact of how awful it looks, but it still shoots, and I just don't care for it. I think the plastic now looks cheap. The whole thing just looks like they tried to Art Deco it or something, so I hate the Nylon 66.
Why you mad at plastic, bro?
Because it's not the future, man. It's not the future.
Well, mine's easy. What do you like? Because whatever it is, I hate that with a passion.
Well, I like everything except the Nylon 66. So, Eric, you're going to have to break the tie here.
I hate plastic. Well, at least the Gen3 Glock 40 cal plastic pistols.
Did you say that?
Yes,
you said that out loud, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I'm sure somewhere I'm going to hell for this, but organizationally, trying to get those things to work and run, and then especially as there were all the various internal model changes and new magazines and new followers and new springs and use lights, don't use lights, change ammo, go to this load, go to this bullet weight. No. Gen 3 40 cals go away.
That doesn't fit the criteria. We said unreasonable. That's kind of a reasonable hate.
Oh, okay. So how about the Grendel P10 I bought after a 45-day deployment in the Army? That little thing that fed with like a stripper clip. You lock the slide to the rear, it fed with a stripper clip and had like a spring, maybe a follower inside the grip. How about, does that count?
I completely forgot about those. Wow.
I still have it. I'm waiting for a good gun buyback to get rid of that one.
I never thought of that.
I had one and I sold it because I actually backed up my hate with action. You know, I'm not just sitting there gabbing like you guys. You know, I put some meat behind my positions on this. You know, you want to guess what it is? I'll give you a hint. It's a revolver. Kind of old.
Nah.
And
I don't know.
It was engineered by the damn Russians. You guys are awful at this game. 1895 Nagant. See, we got Roy in the background. He's not on, but he knows what it is. 1895 Nagant Revolver. Have you ever shot one of those? Seriously?
No.
I have not. I've seen them. I've never shot one.
Then you have some future hate coming your way, because the trick. Well, first, for those who don't know, this was a clever invention that solved a non-existent problem. You know how those generally work out, right? So this thing, the gist behind it, it's a double action. But when you press, I'm going to say pull deliberately, because there's no pressing of this trigger. It's more of like a steam-powered winch scenario. So you pull the trigger. The whole cylinder rotates and moves forward and jams into the forcing cone, so that the very weird cartridge case with the elongated brass that goes past the seated bullet jams into the forcing cone, thereby eliminating the cylinder gap. Then eventually, well, on occasion, it actually shoots at that point, right? So I guess the guy who invented this thing said, hey, we're going to eliminate the cylinder gap problem, right, And, it'll make a great suppressed revolver. That's a big problem we've got to overcome these days, right? So anyway, so you put all that stuff together, and the trigger, I've measured this, it's exactly the same as tying a string to a brick, putting it on another brick, and then pulling it, right? That's the trigger.
Wow.
I have some
seriously, how do you feel about it?
I have some harsh feelings towards this gun because it never should have been invented. And I bought it knowing a lot of this, but I said, hey, this is a piece of history, right? This happened. They used this thing in wars and stuff like that. And I said, it'd be cool to have. And I bought it, and I got reloading dies and everything, made some ammo, shot it, and said, this is for the birds. So
I don't know if it qualifies, though. That sounds like reasonable hatred.
Yeah.
Well, you could say that it's clever engineering, So maybe my hatred is unreasonable, but...
No, seriously, I don't know that I hate any gun. I mean, I dislike the Nylon 66, but, I've always just enjoyed shooting guns. So even if it's a piece of crap, as long as it'll put bullets down range. I'm trying to think of one that I've fired that I absolutely just couldn't stand, and not that I would own them, but hatred is such a strong word, but that's what you have to use on the internet nowadays, because nobody wants to see guns we don't really care for, but if you want to own one, that's fine.
Yeah, mine isn't one gun. It was a whole bunch of one gun from an organizational perspective.
And my Glock 22, I carried it for a while, didn't have any, or 22, right? Didn't have any problems with it. What were you, during department quals or working on them? Or?
Yeah, well, it was dealing with everything. So they wouldn't work with lights on them. Some of the later Gen 3s wouldn't work without lights on them. To get them to run, it was the whole smorgasbord of what bullet weight, what muzzle velocity are you going to get to use. The never-changing magazine models. So there were 2 different magazine models and 9 different followers during this time, designs during this time. Glock, like, hey, we'll replace all of them. Then, hey, let's remediate some. Then can we come to the remediation? Sure, and they're still not working.
You know what's funny, Eric? I had totally forgotten about that. I had purged that from my memory because I had a Glock 22 at one point. I said, in the whole light craze and home defense gun. So I didn't have a departmental issue. I had an individual issue with that exact same thing. You start putting stuff on the rail that's presumably there for a reason, and it stopped working.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was weird because it would work with our frangible at like 1225 feet per second. It would work with our training ammo that was about 1100 feet per second. But once we got down to the duty stuff that was chronoed in the low thousands, it stopped working.
Well, Roy in the background held up a sign. He nominated World War II sporterized rifles. If I read that correct, guys, did you see what he held up there?
I'm going to have to agree with Roy on that, too. That's butchery. And bastardization is what that is.
I bought a Johnson rifle a couple years ago, and trying to find the original butt plate to replace the rubberized pad that got thrown on there. Tried to go find an aftermarket reproduction rear sight to replace the micrometer one that somebody had put on there. Trying to find the original parts to turn it back to the way it was supposed to be. Yep.
Well, and maybe this is a topic for another show, but that just reminded me of something. I'd like to hear what you guys think after I explain. Let's talk about guns that you built or put together that other people probably hate. And in my case, it would be, I had it wasn't a Remington Rand, but I had an M1 carbine, and this was back before the whole patrol rifle thing. So I turned it into a patrol rifle. I got one of those side folding stocks, and I forget what all. I had it tricked out with I think a AA mag light on a barrel clamp mount, and I think I threw the original wood away and all that, and I ended up selling it for like $200, which I sorely regret today, but if you saw it at a gun show, you would probably throw up in your mouth if you saw it. But I was guilty of that. I was young. I was still experimenting,
Well, you know what? You're just indirectly making me think of another thing that I hate without good reason. And
see, now it's flowing.
It is flowing. And you know why there's no good reason to hate it? Because I've never shot one, but I think I might hate them anyway. And it's those conversions, like that convert Glocks and things to carbines and rifles.
Oh,
where you shove your pistol up
Yep.
the kazoo of some big rifle kit or something, and you got a pistol magazine full of something to shoot somehow.
Yeah. I just got a press release on one. Somebody's bringing another one out, and it's this big thing. And I'm thinking, well, maybe why wouldn't you get a carbine and carry it with you, instead of shoving your gun up into the wazoo, as I believe was the technical term you used. What do you guys, okay, on the same note, what about the side shot? The famed around the corner shooting gun that they really loved them on Mythbusters.
Gosh, we're bringing up all kinds of blasts from the past. That's right.
Only have seen pictures, never shot it. Only have seen photos.
Yeah, I've not shot it, but you talk about a Rube Goldberg-esque type of machine, I would be a little leery. And again, so do you put your personal sidearm into it, so then you've only got one piece of kit that shoots, or do you carry a second, which kind of, the whole concept.
I actually can enlighten you guys on some history behind that. The same guy who invented the M1895 Nagant Revolver invented the side shot. You can see, if you want to win your next bar bet, there you go. You're welcome.
Yeah, and he eventually opened Jennings Firearms, right?
Oh, it's good. Nick better shut this down before we get in trouble. SHOT Show's coming up. We're going to be banned.
Yeah, well, I think we probably already are. Well, this has been entertaining, and we would love to hear, we keep asking for comments on these episodes, and we get some really entertaining ones, and one of these days we're going to read them all. But make sure, if you're watching on YouTube, you leave a comment down in the bottom of what you absolutely hate. And before we get out of here, we've got big, exciting, giant, great news about the Gun Cranks. We're not just video now. We've been accused of having faces for radio. Well, now we are a podcast. So, Tom, talk about the Gun Cranks podcast.
Well, I tell you what, if you're one that likes less multimedia, then the Gun Cranks podcast is for you. But seriously, we have launched the audio-only version of the Gun Cranks. What do we call this thing anyway? We've launched the audio-only version. So if you're driving to work, mowing the lawn, doing something where you really shouldn't be watching video at the same time, subscribe to the podcast. And we've made it real easy. You can find Gun Cranks on gunsmagazine.com, just like you're watching here. You can also find Gun Cranks on AmericanHandgunner.com, and you will see all the links you need to get to the podcast. And it's available on all the, what do you call them, sound networks, Brent? You're the sound guy, right? We got Spotify.
Podcast directories.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, Apple and Spotify. And
whatever.
Sound,
yeah, all that stuff.
Well, we're not on SoundCloud, but yeah.
Go to AmericanHandgunner.com and you'll find it. So there you go.
Or gunsmagazine.com, and it'll be there.
AmericanHandgunner.com. Go there first.
Well, while you've got the floor, Tom, talk about our special editions, because that's something that you ride herd over.
Oh, yeah. We've got on the shelves right now, the Old West special edition is out, and it is chock full of stories, not just the guns and gear, but the people and the wild and crazy things they did back then. So you will absolutely love that. Keep an eye out for it. You can also find information on those on both of our websites. Go get one.
And there's a special story on gunfights of the Mosin Nagant Revolver. So you'll want to make sure you check that out.
Because there was a guy around the corner using one of those angle shooters. And you have to read the magazine to see what happened.
There you go. Well, make sure you check out our podcast, the Gun Cranks podcast, which is different than the Guns Magazine podcast, one of America's favorite guns podcasts. You can also check it out. And AmericanCop.com. Eric, we don't talk about American Cop as much as we should. Tell folks a little bit about it. It's not just for cops anymore,
No,
is
it's
it?
not just for cops. It's for the prepared citizen, right? Those people who are serious about their training, about taking responsibility for themselves and the folks around them. We do hit some law enforcement things. We also hit a lot of training issues, a lot of equipment issues. It's November now, so we've got the holidays coming up. A lot of editorial focus this month on gear as gifts for folks. So the different
Great
choices
stuff.
there.
So check out all of our various properties, and of course, American Handgunner Magazine and Guns Magazine and their respective websites. Guys, it's been a fun and semi-disgusting. I did throw up in my mouth once talking about one of these guns, but it's been fun. So we will see you next episode. On behalf of Tom McHale and Erick Gelhaus, I'm Brent Wheat. See you next time.